In 1992, action movies were the rage. The two of the biggest stars were Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren. They joined forces for a sci-fi action movie that went on to become a huge hit. A relatively unknown German director, Roland Emmerich, was behind the camera, who went on to direct such hits as Stargate, Independence Day, and The Day After Tomorrow, as well as a few movies that weren't so big. But he went on to become a huge director. It was a teaming of two massive stars that fans wanted to see, and all these years later it's still remembered. There's been loads of sequels, and it's still talked about and shown on TV and streaming services to this day. On this episode, I'm joined by Benji, who is a huge fan of Jean-Claude Van Damme, but this movie has passed him by. He's never seen it. So we're going to sit down, watch this film, and then discuss it, its merits, and if there's any flaws. If you've not seen Universal Soldier, I recommend you watch it before listening to this, because there will be spoilers. So sit back and enjoy. This is Beyond the Graves and Stars, the sci-fi and horror podcast. This one's more sci-fi, I suppose, but it's still quite violent, so horror fans might like it as well. Benji, thanks for joining me. This is a long time coming. The last guest I had on for the Megan episode was a long time coming. I'm getting there. The people who have said for years they want to come on a podcast with me are finally here. So, welcome. This is the first podcast you've ever been on, yeah?
It is, yes. Hello.
Hello, and I know you through watching films, really, through other people. And we regularly do B-movie days, and you do B-movie days with other people as well, yeah?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and big fan of lots of genres.
Yeah, so basically I don't really discriminate. So I watch everything from silent cinema to world cinema to video nasties, you know. As long as it's interesting and it's sincere, I'll give almost anything a go.
That's good, and that's what we want for this. I know it's horror and sci-fi, but that's a very wide range of movies. And this one, Universal Soldier, is as much an action film as anything else. Now, you're new to this film.
I am, yes.
Yeah. Yep. But you're a big Jean-Claude Van Damme fan.
I am, yes. So I actually got told off by many of my friends for not having seen Universal Soldier. And I think what it was is it's one of those films that you think you see quite often and you think, oh, one day I'll watch it. Yeah. One day I'll watch it. Because, you know, I'm always thinking, Death in Venice. I haven't seen that, and how often am I going to find Death in Venice compared to Universal Soldier? For argument's sake. But yeah, it just never comes around. And then one day you told me, let's watch it, and I thought, well, that's a big gap in my JCV.
Yeah.
So let's do it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. I'm the same with films, especially films that are accessible, that you see everywhere. There's a lot of classics that I haven't seen, and it would take quite often either doing a podcast on it, now I do that, or if there's an anniversary screening at a cinema I can make. You know, so I totally get why you haven't seen it. I first saw it when I was very young. It came out in 92, I believe.
That's right.
And I'd have been 11, so a year or so later it was a friend's brother's video. He was old enough for it, and we watched it, and I loved it, but I don't think I was too big on Van Damme at that age. I'd seen Kickboxer and Bloodsport and stuff. But what was the first Van Damme film you remember watching?
So for me, it's one of the greatest films of all time, and that was Street Fighter.
Okay.
So what you got to remember, so I'm a bit younger than you. So when Universal Soldier came out, I would have been 7, 8 years old, and I was a bit squeamish. Yeah. You know, whereas nowadays, I think, haha.
Yeah.
The more the merrier. But Street Fighter was actually, it's a 12 rated film, so it was I was the right age for it. And I remember a lot of people complaining about the film, Van Damme films at the time, complaining about it because Van Damme usually does 15, 18 rated films, so they felt a 12 rated film was a a betrayal.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
But for people like me, it was the gateway into Van Damme, and yeah, I mean, hand on heart, I love that film. Like I say, I watch films of all genres and types and whatnot, but there's just a sheer joy to that film that I know that film front to back, and it just puts a big smile on my face because it's stupid, but it's sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge without being post-ironic about it.
Yeah. Was that 1994?
That was 1994.
Yeah, because I can remember that coming out pretty well. I didn't see it in the cinema, but I remember thinking, it's strange he's in a 12 certificate movie. But it's a weird one, because I think that's deliberate. Loads of us youngsters who watched all these films on video wanted to see them in the cinema, couldn't.
That's right.
And then they made this one, and then there's a stubbornness of, well, I don't want to see him in a 12. And I think it was the same with a few Arnie films.
Yes.
Arnie's comedies sold, like Twins and Kindergarten Cop and stuff. Kindergarten Cop was actually 15 when it first came out. But they sold. But Van Damme, people just wanted action. But I do think when you watch this movie, you'll see some of his comedy timing and stuff as well, which I'm sure you've seen before in other movies.
Yeah, I think he doesn't get a lot of credit for his comedic timing, like Double Impact.
Yeah,
that's actually quite a funny film.
Yeah.
And,
but I think he's really amusing in interviews.
And
I will remind you to put your phone on silent, because that was just mine. So my phone just went
like being in the cinema.
Yeah, I actually turned it up so I could hear you coming if you messaged. But there we go. We do this podcast like it's a live radio show, so I'm going to leave that in.
Okay.
So there we go. Unless something major happens, like the fire alarm goes off or a bear comes in, we will do it. But yeah, so we'll put the film on in a minute, and we'll obviously put an ad or the trailer or something for the listeners to listen to. Recommend to the listeners, if you haven't seen it, to watch it, because this will be spoiler heavy. Now, are you aware of the director of this movie?
Roland Emmerich.
Yes. Fan?
Not so much, although I did do a little research to see what other films he did, and I'm actually quite intrigued in the films he did before Universal Soldier, because he did do a lot of like German sci-fi films, which sounds quite interesting. Yeah,
this was his first American movie.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not huge on him, but I do like Stargate, the film he done after this.
Shockingly, I've not seen.
There we go.
Yeah.
And at the time, I liked Independence Day.
Yes, so that was my first Emmerich film, and I saw Godzilla, which I need to watch again, having gone back to the Toho Godzilla films, and I'm pretty sure it will still remain a bad film. But again, it was my first Godzilla, so I have a weird soft spot for it. And to be honest, I've not touched any of his films since, because I'm not very big on the sort of CG explosion sort of stuff, which he's very much big on.
There was one he'd done a few years ago which felt really 90s, a Moonfall or something
like that.
And I did see that, and it was just it was made 25 years too late, and I think the beginning of the end film for me was Godzilla. I watched it probably 5 years ago, and if you can imagine it's not a Godzilla film and just a big monster, it's not too bad. And I haven't seen it Day After Tomorrow and things like that. No. But Independence Day was huge, and I do want to revisit it one day. Did he do the sequel to that?
He did. No, I don't believe. No, he did. I believe he did. Yes.
We'll check that while we're. I've not seen that.
But just an aside, he has done a couple of what I call indie films. So he's done a couple of dramas in the midst of all these.
Oh, okay.
I think one is called Stonewall, which is about the gay pride.
Okay.
Because I believe he is gay.
Okay.
If memory serves. And I think he did a Shakespearean film, which was received quite poorly. But again, I love it when directors go off the beaten track and do something very different. So I'd be quite interested to give those a try down the line as well, in between his sort of.
Yeah, that sounds more interesting. It's like. Is it Verhoeven, is it, who done RoboCop?
Yes.
He's done that.
His early Dutch films are very interesting.
And now he's back to doing more Dutch films. It's more interesting again. I think he made several bangers in the 90s, don't get me wrong. I love Total Recall, and but it's nice when a director are big enough to be able to do their own thing.
Yes.
And with that. I'll definitely look into them. And like yourself, I want to look into his older movies as well. And of course, Dolph Lundgren, you a fan?
Yeah, I know. Shockingly, I don't know as much of his stuff as I should. I mean, he was Rocky IV, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, I know that, and he's great in that. And the Expendables films, he's really funny.
Yeah.
In those, I think he's got a good sense of comedic timing. And he's done a lot of straight to VHS films, which I love the aesthetic, that vibe of that time, but I've still yet to see. But I know a lot of them have come out on boutique Blu-ray labels.
Like Red Scorpion has Dark Angel.
Yeah.
And of course, he was the first live-action He-Man.
Oh, yeah. I
Masters
totally
Universe.
forgot about that. Yeah.
And I see that movie much like how you see Street Fighter, I think. I love it. I love it a lot. And there's a new one of that coming out, and there's rumours that he's going to cameo in it.
Okay,
so,
that would be quite interesting.
Yeah, so... Okay, should we put it on? Let's put the film on. So this is the trailer for that, and there may be something else for you to listen to as well. And then we'll be discussing Universal Soldier.
I'm Jem.
And I'm Victoria.
And we are childhood best friends with a true crime podcast called
The Criminal Crack. During each episode, one of us presents a true crime case to the other.
And the listener has no idea what the case will be.
So every reaction, question and twisted theory you hear is genuine and off the cuff.
So join us fortnightly on the platform of your choice.
And find us on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok by searching at The Criminal Crack.
Bye-bye!
Keep on trucking!
It was a top-secret government project. Backman eyes, all of them. Designed to create the perfect soldier.
No man would ever again have to die in the service of his country.
Cryogenically preserved.
Okay, guys, memory clearance.
Genetically enhanced.
How's the picture?
Pretty ugly.
Very funny, very funny.
Programmed to obey.
They're at the tower. Okay, here we go.
Who are these guys?
30 hostages held inside the power station at the base of the structure.
I said shut up! We're inside.
Begin phase 2.
This marks the third successful mission for the Universal Soldier.
But there was something they didn't count on.
He's not responding. GR-44, do you read me? At the end of the mission, he became completely unresponsive.
Inside the machine is a man.
Did you really think the Pentagon would allow the regeneration of dead soldiers? Stop the girl. Shoot if you have to.
And on the tape
Veronica Roberts, TNA?
is one memory
But he didn't do anything!
to awaken him.
Let's go!
Traitor. Universal Soldier.
What the hell did they do to you?
Don't know. But I'm going to find out. One can't be controlled.
Buckle up.
The other cannot be stopped.
This mission has been canceled.
I'm getting the orders from now on.
I'm gonna teach them all.
Are we having fun yet? The ultimate weapons of the future have declared war on each other.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Dolph Lundgren. Universal Soldier.
Stop. That is an order.
Universal Soldier. We've just watched it. Benji, you cheered a few times.
Yes.
Just initial, did you enjoy it?
I did, yes. It was. I was expecting pretty good things because, obviously, many friends have said, it's one of my favourites. And in actual fact, if you don't mind, quick shout out to my mate Gal because he really wanted me to do a shout out, but also he just wanted to say that it's the best JCVD film ever.
Okay.
I don't agree, but it's up there with his best.
Yeah, I mean, for various reasons, it's my personal favourite.
Sure.
I'm not as big a fan. I'll just quickly go over an online synopsis for those who maybe you are listening and you haven't seen it. So, an American soldier who's been killed during the Vietnam War is revived 25 years later by the military as a semi-android. Unisol, a high-tech soldier of the future. After the failure of their incentive to erase all soldiers' memories, he begins to experience flashbacks that are forcing him to recall his past. That isn't the best summary, really.
Not really, no.
Because there are several of these soldiers, one of which is played by Dolph Lundgren, who is a soldier who, well, basically, during Vietnam, they kill each other, don't they?
Sure.
So Van Damme plays Luke, and Dolph is Andrew Brett. Luke is GR44, and Andrew Scott, and Dolph is GR13, and they're both getting flashbacks. Jean-Claude flashbacks because he just wanted to go home during the war, and Dolph was an angry soldier who was basically angry at everyone and just wanted to fight and kill.
And had a prevalence for ear puns.
Yes, he would kill people and chop their ears off. And I think that's going to be the last time I do an online summary, because I don't want to talk too long about the actual plot.
No.
But I don't check them before and just get it up online, and I'm like, that wasn't great, was it?
Well, it's okay. I always like to read a brief synopsis of the film before I go in watching it, because otherwise I'll just think about, who's this? What's that? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
But as long as I have a brief understanding of what the film's about, then I can sort of be happy going in. And I think there was more to it than the synopsis would have you believe, which was quite the surprise. And I think actually, maybe one of the things that put me off watching it for the longest time was that I'm not terribly keen on the sort of post-apocalyptic sort of films, and I was expecting Universal Soldier to be set in a sort of war-torn future.
Okay, yeah.
So I was very, very surprised when I realised it was actually a relatively contemporary film set in modern day, 1992 in this case.
Yeah.
And I think I really enjoyed it more because of that.
I see. So you thought it was a futuristic?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get that by looking at the poster, and that, it looks like a future cop or future soldier.
Yeah,
so, And it isn't. I mean, when it came out, it was lumped in with some. I mean, it done very well. I'm not going to deny that. I've got the how much it made. It cost 23 million. Which isn't that big for then, really. I mean, it's big, but not huge.
Yeah.
When you think only 5 years later, Jim Carrey was paid 20 million for a film himself. So 23 million, and it made 120 million. So that's a big hit.
Not bad at return on investment.
No, I mean, if it doubles its profit, it's a hit.
Yeah.
And that's 5 times nearly. So 4 times. Yeah, 4 times. So done very, very well. And so it was, some people saw it as a RoboCop Terminator type ripoff. And the only thing in common, I'd say, is the man-machine aspect to it, which is not quite as androidy as that it explains later that they bring them back. But they're kind of zombies as well as a bit of technology with it.
Yeah, I kind of got the vibe of sort of, they're still, they're using their organs and whatnot, but they're sort of, how was it explained? Are we allowed to talk spoilers?
Yeah.
Okay. So sort of you reanimating dead cells, but in doing so, they have to be at very, very high temperatures.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's scientifically accurate, I can't say. But I think because I thought, they're just cyborgs, or because they got the little eye.
Yeah.
Camera things going on, and I thought, well, that's not terribly interesting.
No.
But as I say, being set contemporary and sort of like, it's almost like Reanimator meets the Terminator.
Yeah.
Which is quite it's an interesting premise.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the gadgetry on their face, you find out, is more so the military can, or the people who control them, can talk to them and see what they're doing.
Yes.
And when Van Damme, and Dolph, I'm going to use the actors' names, just as easier.
Sure.
When they lose them, they become more themselves.
Yes.
And as the movies go on, they find more memory. As the movie goes on, more memories. And I like that sort of human side of it. And also, I like the the humour of it.
Yeah, so when the film started, I thought, oh, this is quite a grim film, and in actual fact, I was actually quite shocked at the level of violence.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I'm quite numb to it now.
Yeah.
But the violence in it was used very effectively, and I was wincing a couple of times, and and like I say, it's really dark, but like you say, there are elements of humor, and the other thing that I really liked about it is that, again, I thought it was going to be like future set, dark all the time, but a lot of it is set in daylight.
Yeah.
It's a very quote unquote bright film.
Yeah.
Which is very, very interesting aesthetically.
I mean, I'd say it's like a bright sandwich, because it starts dark in Vietnam.
Yes.
In a rainy fight scene between, what ends up being between Dolph and Jean-Claude, and then it ends with another fight scene now, but in the rain, mimicking that first fight scene. And in between is kind of the fun bit of the film. There's, as well as the martial arts in it, there's a lot of set pieces, action scenes. There's a really cool scene when they go to a motel and basically smash through all the walls, which is really well done.
Yes.
There's a petrol station explode.
Yep.
Early on in the film, you've got the typical 80s, 90s car flip.
Yep.
There's a scene in a bus, action based. There's a lot of action in this movie.
Yeah, and as we were saying earlier, one of the things I had difficulty with Emmerich's films was that the action would get so over the top, you become numb to it.
Yeah.
And there's no sense of jeopardy. But what I was really impressed with this film was that for him, I think the action was quite restrained. But I say that loosely because it was actually quite gripping. I kind of got Mad Max vibes.
Yeah, there's
at times.
I get it. Yeah.
It felt not realistic per se, but it felt real, like physical, rather than, because it's pre-CG, obviously.
Yeah.
But the explosions felt, explosiony, if that's a word. I think I was actually impressed. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, I think the action is more contained in this movie than his other films, because in, say, Independence Day, you've got whole towns and cities blowing up. In Godzilla, there's a big-ish lizard standing on things, whereas in this, it's car chases and fight scenes.
But there's also scenes where there is no action for a while, so it gives the action scenes room to breathe.
Yeah.
So you have the adrenaline hit, and then you have the calm bit, then the adrenaline comes back. So I think it's I would say slightly overlong, not by much, but maybe 5 minutes. I don't know. Yeah, but I was never bored, and I think it was edited pretty well.
Yeah, well, it's an extra few minutes on the end of the movie, the final fight scene where, as I say, this is spoilers, where Dolph and Jean-Claude finally have their meet up battle. It was meant to be a lot shorter. If you rewatch it, when they first fight, Van Damme gets up off the floor, kicks him in the face, and then it cuts off, and then they have a big fight where they find Van Damme's parents and save them, and then they go back to that same spot where he kicks Dolph and puts him through the fence, whatever it is, and kills him. That whole middle bit was added in after reshoots because as a test audience who were loving the film up to that point didn't like that Dolph was killed off so quickly.
Right. And
they, in the words of the director, they wanted to see the villains suffer. So they added this whole fight scene, which I don't know how many times I've seen this film over the years. Not so many recently. When I was a kid, I watched it a lot. Then I watched it when the Blu-ray appeared. I don't know if it's my Blu-ray or I borrowed it, as I was saying to you before. I've since bought another copy just in case. And there's a special edition out now with 2 commentaries and stuff, so that's what I've really get it. That, to me, until it was pointed out, I would never have noticed that was added in.
No.
But
I feel like maybe I'm being a little harsh, actually, because obviously before we started, we were talking about Megan 2, because you and I both saw it yesterday. Separately, I hasten to add. And it was interesting that we both said that the film was quite overlong.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe I was just thinking about the last film I saw and what. But I say it's a few minutes overlong. But what I mean to say is that maybe it could have been a couple of minutes, a few seconds here, a few seconds there. If it was just a little tighter, I think it would have been perfect. But it's no big deal.
It's one of those films that, because I've seen it a few times, to me it goes quickly.
Yeah.
But I often find these films, the first time I see them, it's almost like maybe in this film, because when it was, another thing it was sold as was like Van Damme versus Dolph Lundgren. And I think when I was a kid and first saw it, I was just waiting for them to fight. So that's why it's felt longer, and I wasn't enjoying the comic scenes and the emotional scenes, which there were a few in there, you know, with Van Damme going back to see his parents.
Yes.
Then all that I think works. I mean,
yeah, well, it's like I said earlier, you need those scenes to separate the action, because if it was just wall-to-wall action, you would be numbed.
Yeah, you don't
by the end, and it would lose its impact.
And when it starts, and you see these two characters as, you know, Terminator-like, no personality, and as I said, you slowly get that personality, and as the film goes on, you do emphasise with them. Whereas if it was just action and you didn't see that, you wouldn't emphasise it. You might like the fight scenes,
but they'd be really one-dimensional.
Exactly, you know, and I think this is one of the reasons a lot of people prefer Terminator 2 to Terminator, because you've got the young John Connor and the relationship between him and the T-1000 Arnold's character. There's more heart to the film than the original.
I think that's an aside. I think what I liked about T1 and T2 is that they're kind of different genres almost. So T1 is almost like a horror film.
Definitely,
and T2 is more of a big budget action.
Yeah.
But I do think T1 has a bit of heart as well, because obviously you got the Sarah Connor love, romance scenes and all that. It's hard to go on with the wind.
No, yeah, but you've got some. You've got some. You've got the Michael Ben character falling for her. But yeah, I always see the Terminator as Halloween with a robot. Or Alien with a robot, the same. It's a slasher without a knife. It's got a gun in it. And I do think, even though I said earlier that this movie isn't much like that, and that RoboCop and the popular ones of that era, I do think that helped get movies like this made off the back of that popularity, and also why that cover, the poster is them with that gear on.
Yeah,
it is for that audience.
Yeah, I think, like I say, it felt a little misleading. Like I say, maybe because I hate to say this, but sometimes bad poster artwork can be really off-putting.
Yeah.
I've so many films I watch, I think, oh, that looks cool.
Yeah.
And I think, if you don't have that connection, it's hard to delve further.
Yeah.
Because how I watch films is, I think, certainly nowadays, is if a new film comes out, my first thought is who directed it. And I think if it's a director I admire, then I think, okay, I don't need to know anything else. I'm happy to go see it. But if I don't know who the director is or who any of the actors are, obviously a trailer helps, but sometimes you see the poster before you watch the trailer. And I think Universal Soldier, maybe for me, I just found the poster quite bland.
Yeah.
And actually looking at the you've got two Blu-rays, and actually with two different bits of artwork, and both are pretty bad. One is better than the other, but
and it's that whole, going back to posters, that whole video nasty thing of there'd be a poster and it would sell this what they want it to be, and it often wasn't that.
Sometimes the posters were better than the film.
Yeah, and you got the Canon era where sometimes the posters were made before the film.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's marketing of that day. And it's the same with music, heavy metal bands with their cool, fantasy looking out. I mean, look at Meatloaf's album covers. And that's one thing that appealed me to it. And nowadays, I'm the same, I suppose. I'll go and see pretty much anything. I'm interested in horror and sci-fi, hence I'm doing this. But I will look at the director, and not so much the cast nowadays, even though there are people that I would...
Yeah, that I would say, as far as cast goes, obviously there are actors and actresses I love, and I think, oh, so-and-so's got a new film out. Okay, I'm a big fan of their work, I'll go see it.
Yeah.
But I think, sadly, in this day and age where there aren't as many marquee film stars as there used to be.
There's some great actors out there, but
100%.
But there's not the movie stars there used to be.
Yeah.
With this had two.
Yeah.
This had two people who'd bring you to it. Nowadays, even actors who are big names Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
His last couple of films have been flops.
Mm.
You know, and it
Undeservedly, I'd say.
Fall Guy I thought was great.
I was a big fan of that.
Yeah.
But again, I went in thinking, oh, I'm not sure what to think here, because the director is a bit hit or miss.
Deadpool 2 director, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did he do Bullet Train?
Yeah. Bullet Train was alright.
I did not like Bullet Train at all. It was terrible.
See, that's interesting. But I went in, I thought, I'll give it a chance. And I actually liked it more than I was expecting.
Yeah. See,
and it's the same with this film.
Yeah. Well, it's just with Fall Guy. I loved the TV series. It was nothing like it.
I didn't even know there was a TV series at the time.
Lee Majors rules. It's nothing like it, but it's still a fun film.
Yeah.
But back in the day, Arnie was in a film. You go and see it.
Yeah.
What Steve Guttenberg sold on there. Do you know what I mean? And now it is more. You will watch the trailer.
Yeah.
But then I hesitate with trailers because there's too many spoilers now.
Yeah. There was a trailer I saw yesterday. I can't even remember the film. That's how much impact it had on me. But as I was watching it, I thought it's just the entire film in fast forward.
Yeah.
Almost in chronological order.
Yeah,
I thought that's really bad.
A little teaser I know you get teaser trailers.
Yeah.
A little bit of the film, who's in it, who directed it, and maybe just like 30 seconds from it.
Yeah.
That's what I want in a trailer.
That's all I need these days.
Yeah. But we're
old
farts, we're not necessarily the target
audience anymore.
But we mentioned Megan. If you haven't already, the last episode, Mario's my guest, and we discussed Megan and Megan 2. But back to Universal Soldier, I do want to mention. We'll go through, if that's all right with you,
by all means,
what you thought of the performances. Because watching this now, I thought the acting in it for this style of film was pretty damn good.
Yeah. So
start with Van Damme.
Yep. So. I mean, what I love about Van Damme is that you could argue he's a bit of a one-trick pony, but his one trick is wonderful.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel like I'm doing a disservice because he actually has a bit of range given the right film, like the JCVD film, for examul.
Yeah.
You know, that's actually quite moving from what I can remember.
Where he plays himself.
That's it.
Yeah. A while ago I saw that.
And as I alluded to earlier, you know, he's actually got a sense of good comedic timing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, he does what he does, and I could listen to him read the phone book, and I'd be happy.
Yeah.
But as we were watching the film, I think I may have mentioned, he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that, he hasn't done the other, and then as soon as he did this, that, the other, which I'll say in a moment, I cheered.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I would never do in a cinema. By the way,
No.
In cinema you keep quiet, but when you're watching at home, different story.
Yeah.
So it took the first cheer was 35 minutes into the film, and I asked you to time it because that's when you see his butt cheeks,
his buttocks,
his buttocks.
Yeah.
Because I thought to myself, it's been nearly 30 minutes and there's no nude scene. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then it happened. I was like, thank you.
And apparently, according to the director's commentary, this is still fairly early in his career. He was still nervous doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
Because
I thought he just.
I thought he did it previously.
Yeah, he has done, but he was still nervous to do it.
Right.
Yeah. I've heard the same about Will Ferrell, who also does it in every film. So that was the first thing.
The second cheer was the high kick to the face.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, thank you. I think that was the scene at the diner, if I recall.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go back to that scene later. But the biggest cheer was the spin kick.
Spin kick.
And I was like, okay, but maybe I should have accepted this is going to be towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
But you can't have a Jean-Claude Van Damme film without him doing a spin kick.
No.
Actually, one thing that was missing from this film was he didn't do the splits.
That's true. He did. That's his sort of party trick. When the script isn't that good, get him to do the splits, and we're there.
Yeah.
If he was, instead of Stallone in Stop All My Mum Will Shoot, he'd be doing the splits every 5 minutes.
So to off quote Meatloaf, 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Yeah, to off quote the loaf.
Yeah.
See, I like him in this film because they say one trick pony, but you've got him playing the Terminator-esque zombie robot, emotionless, really well. It shows hints as it goes on of him getting the personality.
That's a good point.
Which he does really well.
Yeah, very subtle as time goes on. Yeah.
Comic timing.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yep.
And I think his chemistry with both the Veronica character, who we'll talk about later, and and Dolph Lundgren, hints at friendship more than romance because of what's going on, and he's the way he is with the villain, and to a certain respect when he sees his family.
Yes,
it's all done really well.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's Oscar worthy.
No,
but
there's more. There's more than.
I'll tell you something. If Seagal was in this role, and I don't want to slag off Seagal, but Seagal couldn't have done this performance.
No.
He could influence a little girl in Megan 2 to beat people up, but and Under Siege is great, so I'll leave Seagal alone. But he's not up to the standard of this.
No. And if we're talking in terms of A list, B list, you have your Schwarzenegger and your Stallones as your S tier, Van Damme is your A/S tier, and then I would say Seagal is towards the bottom.
Yeah, and about 10 feet above all of them, Chuck Norris. Yeah.
Oh yeah, how could I possibly forget?
And Cynthia Rothrock, she rules as well.
Oh yes.
She's got a new one out called Black Creek. She's well in her 60s now, and she's still kicking high and doing the splits in Western gear. Give that a go. I rented it on Prime actually. I thought it was cool. But yeah, I think this is a more than solid performance from Van Damme, and
no Street Fighter though.
But I'm saying he's better in this than other films. But he's given more to do in this than he is in other films, and he does it.
Yeah.
Recently, I watched Death Warrant, and
not a bad film.
Not a bad film. He hasn't got as much to do in this as in this, and with the comic timing, there's a few bits. I'll just mention. With Veronica, there's a bit when they go into the door to find a doctor, and someone opens the door and says, "Have you got an appointment?" She says yes. He's slowly shaking his head and then changes to nod to agree. That makes me laugh every time, and it's in his face that innocent, dopey. Oh, I'll go along with it. It's really good.
And and like I said a few minutes ago, the scene at the bar, the diner, where it's almost like he's discovered how to eat food, and his just joy in eating everything, and the cook comes up and says, how are you going to pay for this? And of course he doesn't understand the concept of money. And then that leads to your stereotypical bar brawl sort of scene. And I thought all I was missing was a ZZ Top on the soundtrack or something,
I like the bit in that when someone gets thrown into the jukebox, then a song comes on, which is that sort of fighting music.
Yes.
And reminiscent of in the film Dirty Work, they start a bar fight and Chris Farley goes, "Oh, I'll put Street Fighter Man on." He goes to the jukebox, puts the wrong number in, and Coco Cabana comes on instead. Pina Colada song, sorry. That's what I meant to say.
Both are good songs.
Both bangers.
Yeah.
So Van Damme, very good in this movie.
Yep.
Dolph.
Yeah. So it was interesting because he has to play a sort of
bastard.
Or yes, I was going to say like a sort of ice cold monosyllabic sort of character. So he's someone who cannot be allowed to do anything other than one type of role.
Yeah.
So Van Damme, he's sort of going from Vietnam fighter to Universal Soldier to slowly becoming more human. But Lundgren can't do that. All the film allows him to be is a bad man.
Yeah, angry.
Yeah.
It reminds me of his role in Rocky IV, where he's just this machine. He isn't a machine, but dead to the world. All he thinks about is the victory, the fighting. Whereas in this, all he thinks about is the fighting. There's a few not light-hearted roles, but he says some one-liners himself, but they're dark one-liners.
Well, as I was saying earlier,
nasty.
He has a lot of ear-related or hearing-related puns.
Yeah.
And maybe that's his character while he was alive,
Yeah.
So maybe that memory lingers, But yeah, he's very efficient at what he does, And yeah, obviously he's bigger and I wouldn't say stronger, but he's much bigger than Van Damme, and you can see that in the fight scenes. And he does really pummel Van Damme about, which is quite interesting because when you think about a lot of action heroes, they actually have pretty fragile egos. So they refuse to show themselves being hurt or
Yeah.
being beaten. Do you ever read that? There was a really good book that came out a couple of years ago. It's called The Last Action Heroes.
I have read it, but I remember very little of it, like most things. Did I read it all? I've read some of it.
It's a real page turner. I found it a really, really interesting book.
Yeah.
But what was really good about that book was that the author explained that Stallone would not allow himself to be seen as weak.
Yeah.
Certainly, Steven Seagal would never allow that.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of sad, really.
Yeah.
But Van Damme, I think he actually allows a little, for lack of a better word, weakness.
Yeah.
To be had, because it makes his eventual victory ever the more sweeter.
Well, yeah, I mean, I never understand that. If it's just a hard man who wins the fight, it's not.
It's boring.
You can't emphasise. It's not there.
No.
You can't get behind it. It's like, imagine if in the Karate Kid,
I was just thinking about that.
The final fight, he just punches it, and that is going back to what we said earlier about they added in the scene for a different way, so that they wanted more of the battle between the main characters. They wanted to see this person who had beaten up earlier everyone really suffer, and you need that, and that might be one of the reasons why I'm not so big on Seagal. Was it that book, by the way, where I read two things? Firstly, related to this film, where Dolph Lundgren and Jean-Claude Van Damme at the premiere pretended to have a bit of a scuffle?
Yes. Yeah. And I think it got a little out of hand.
Yeah, but on an interview on the Blu-ray, when Dolph was asked whether they actually got on, he seemed quite offended. He's like, we do get on. People keep saying this. And I think because they joked about not getting on for the sake of the film, they are good mates.
Well, you got to remember they've been in quite a few films together.
I was going to ask you towards the end. They've done 3 films together, and if you know them,
Expendables 2.
Oh, yeah.
Technically, they've done a few more Universal Soldiers. Is that right?
They've done. I said 3, but since I've done the research, they've been in one more together.
Yeah.
Expendables, and there's one more film they're in together, which I didn't know.
It's one I'm not familiar with.
I bet you've seen it. Minions: The Rise of Gru.
No, I haven't seen it.
See, I didn't know.
The only Minions I've seen was on a theme park ride in Japan.
Okay.
And I have to admit, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, Minions rule.
I hated myself for laughing. And I thought, you know what, stop being a snob.
Well, for his Minions, it's not kids who like it, it's old people. They love it. And that's what keeps them films going. So, yeah, Dolph as well, I just wanted to mention that prior to this, his career had been sort of up and down after Rocky IV. He was in Masters of the Universe that really bombed, but he's great, as I said earlier. I love
Major cult classic nowadays.
Yeah, but in that, they were worried about his acting abilities. So a lot of the lines meant for He-Man were given to Man-at-Arms and Teela.
Right.
So when you watch it, there's the sort of side characters are carrying the plot, and I think he's gone on to become a better actor. If you see more recent, like Expendables, he's very good in that, and it's a learning curve because, like Van Damme, he came from a martial arts background, I believe. One thing you might be able to help me with, I hope he doesn't listen, but someone I was talking to in the pub the other day doesn't like Van Damme because he claims that Van Damme didn't come from martial arts; he was a ballerina. That's nonsense, isn't it?
No, he did learn ballet.
Yeah, but he done martial arts first and competed.
I can't remember which way round it was. But the book I mentioned, Last Action Heroes, does go into that into more detail.
I didn't remember that in the book, but he does come from martial arts background.
Because he won quite a few awards prior to a film career.
Yeah, I love that. I weren't sure, but this bloke's just ignored the martial arts part, and also it's acting. Even if he did, it looks good on screen.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that rant out of the way. Hope he's not listening. He won't. If he does, you don't know I'm talking about,
Or if he does, maybe he can share, like, and subscribe.
Yes, share, like, subscribe. So yeah, I thought Dolph was good, and he's scary in it. He does scary well. And the actress who played Veronica, have you seen her in anything else? Ali Walker?
I can't say I have. No.
No. Big-ish in the 90s.
Okay.
And I know her from, there was a TV series, short-lived, but it was on when I was younger, called Moon Over Miami, like a Private Eye type TV show. She has a small role in the movie Singles, which is cool, and in While You Were Sleeping, the rom-com with Sandra Bullock and Bill Pullman.
Yeah. Okay.
She's done a few things. I think she's been in some big TV series in America, that sort of stuff I don't watch, so I don't really know. But I think her performance in this is great. She reminds me of April O'Neil / Lois Lane character. She's that reporter,
spunky reporter.
yeah, who is when you first see her, she's driving to be on TV. She's running late and gets there just as it starts, and then when the camera hits, very professional.
Yeah,
and she's a lot of comic relief in this movie.
Yeah,
also quite a bit of heart. I think her performance is really good. It's very well. Actually, I think she's more likable than Margot Kidder in Superman. I'm not saying she's better than that, because that character, she's a bit more self, whereas in this she is a bit, but she's also just trying to get by.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because how should I put it? I thought she was pretty good. I think actually she wasn't like a damsel in distress sort of character, so that was quite refreshing.
Yeah,
this was someone who could hold her own to a degree. But also, as I was watching the film, I thought, why are you illegally going on an army site?
Yeah,
you're not a stickler for the rules.
No, it was to get the story, wasn't it?
Sure.
But then she befriends him and wants to help him.
But her colleague got killed.
Yes.
And I thought, oh dear, this isn't good. And then he's basically forgotten like 5 minutes later.
But she's framed for his murder.
Yes.
So she's going along as well to basically save it, get the situation sorted.
Yeah.
But that's never actually resolved.
It's never resolved, is it?
No, the film ends and that isn't resolved. And to my knowledge, I've not seen any of them. She's in none of the sequels, so maybe she's just in prison. Who knows?
The funny thing is, I actually have the official Universal Soldier 2, and I've had that in my backlog for a few years now. But I said I couldn't watch it until I watched this one.
Well, you say official. There are 2 Universal Soldiers 2. They're both official.
Yeah,
it's just one's got Van Damme,
and one is a straight to TV.
It was I think it was made for video back in the day.
Straight to VHS.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But there's 1, 2, 3, 5 other movies, and the 5th one made is Universal Soldier 3, which is called Unfinished Business.
Wow. And
it doesn't star either of them. It's got 2.3 on IMDb. Burt Reynolds is in it. That's probably
he's probably in for like 2 minutes.
So that one, it will be dodgy. But there is one which is meant to be really good. Not Universal 2, but there's one called Brothers in Arms, Universal Soldier 2. That's the one for TV.
I hope it's about Dire Straits.
Yeah. In 2012, there's Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning, which has got a higher rating on Letterboxd than the original, at 3.2, not 3 out of 5. And that's got Van Damme in it, and Dolph Lundgren is back. And apparently it's pretty damn good. Action fans really like it. And weirdly, it's done by the same director as Universal. I did not know this. I'm discovering it on 3 years before that. So they've done another film together, another Universal Soldier film, which will be the 3rd. That one will be the 4th.
Right.
Called Regeneration, which has got the same rating, 3 out of 5. I'm going to have to look into getting hold of these films, because today, before we done this, I was wandering about the streets of Ipswich trying to kill time because I've got stuff to do at work and I had to edit the last podcast.
Sure.
And I went looking for the other sequels and I couldn't find any of them.
Not even in charity shops.
Not even in second-hand DVD shops, which I won't name, but it sounds like sex. So I'm going to try to get hold of these. And if you are interested in talking about any of the others, I'd love to. But getting back to the actors, I think I'm a fan of Ali Walker, but she didn't do much else big Hollywood after this, apart from a few smaller appearances in not action films. So maybe that's not her genre.
No.
But from what I remember,
she looked like she was having fun.
Yeah, she looked like a kind of her performance and her look reminded me of a younger sort of Meg Ryan, but in an action film. And I'm going to mention as well Jerry Orbach, who played Dr. Gregor, who was the one who helped with the project. Right. And then they went to visit him to find out more.
Right.
Because he's in loads of stuff. He's passed away now, but he was the dad. Most famous role probably the dad in Dirty Dancing. Did you recognise this guy? He was in Murder, She Wrote a lot as well. You didn't know?
No, I've never watched it.
You've never? No. He does a voice in the original Beauty and the Beast, but you recognise his face from that. He's in FX, and he's in Out for Justice with Steven Seagal, which I'm sure you have seen.
I have seen that.
Yeah. And Straight Talk with Dolly Parton, loads of stuff, really familiar face. Not in a lot of this film, but he's just one of those actors that, look him up, he'd done loads. Unfortunately, he passed away 21 years ago.
Oh dear.
But yeah, he was born in 1935 though, so a long career. And there's a few other familiar faces. It must be actors you recognised. Tommy Lister Jr. was in it. He was the big black Universal Soldier.
Okay. Yeah.
He was an ex-wrestler and was in loads of films in the 80s. And the actor who played Van Damme's dad, did you recognise him?
I'm afraid not.
Okay,
no,
sorry. No. His name's Rance Howard.
Not Ron Howard.
No, Ron Howard's dad.
Oh.
He's Ron Howard's dad, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he's in a lot of films, smaller roles. He's in Ed Wood, Apollo 13, which his son directed. Mars Attacks, Independence Day, Chinatown, The Grinch, The Burbs, loads of stuff, Parenthood. He basically had small roles in directors he knows movies. But I imagine he was an actor years ago, and in his later career, he was in these bigger films.
So was he in many of his son's films?
He was in quite a few. Yeah, Apollo 13 I mentioned, The Grinch, Parenthood. Yeah, he was in Splash. But he was actually in Cool Hand Luke in 1967, so he's done a lot.
Do you know, I need to watch that again.
I need to watch it.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
I watched it once, maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I still got the DVD, but I watch so many films that I think to myself, I'd like to rewatch that one day.
Yeah.
And then I look at my 400 film backlog and think, maybe another day.
See, this is when I rewatch
the
films,
eternal struggle.
Yeah. But when I'm tired or drunk, that's when I rewatch a film, when I don't have to pay as much. Yeah. And Universal Soldier is a very rewatchable film, I think. It is the sort I can stick on at 1 in the morning if I've got mates around. I think it's a prime example of great 90s action.
Yeah, and I think actually, as someone who still enjoys action films today, what I really got out of this was just how much I love the feel of 80s and 90s action films. Because, like I say, how should I put it? When I watch a lot of modern action films, obviously a lot of there's a lot of digital, it's filmed digitally, there's a lot of CGI and whatnot. And I feel a great sense of disconnect from watching this stuff after a while. There are exceptions, of course. Like I'm thinking of stuff like, I don't know, John Wick and The Raid, where films were very kinetic. Mad Max, of course. Yeah. That I feel what I'm watching feels real, or enough sense of disbelief for me to appreciate it. But watching Universal Soldier and films of its era is that everything feels more tangible.
Yeah. And
therefore I appreciate it more. It's like talking about, like old sci-fi films where there's a lot of model work. Yeah. In a way, I find it feels more real than the flashiest CGI nowadays. And it's like I said earlier about Emmerich's films being, so noisy and so over the top that you lose, or you just become numb to it. But with this film, I didn't get that feeling at all.
I generally feel if CGI hadn't become a film, he'd be a much higher respected director.
Yeah, well, like I say, earlier, he has done a couple of films in different genres, which haven't done that well, but I imagine must have felt very satisfying for him.
Yeah, and they were films, I'm guessing, not made to be blockbusters. They're made for
much smaller budgets.
Yeah, smaller budgets for a small audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I like about this era of action movies is they're just fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the John Wick films, don't get me wrong, but I do wish there was a bit more humour in them. I'm not huge on stuff like Taken. I love Luc Besson, who produced and wrote it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just there's nothing like it.
There's no charm.
Yeah, and I'm not even a fan of like Bourne Identity and things like that. I just find them too serious.
Do you know? Would you believe it when I tell you that I only watched them for the first time ever a few months ago? The Bourne films.
I saw the first two when they came out and fell asleep during the second.
I quite liked them, but I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's a time and a place for these sorts of films. Sometimes I want something a bit more cerebral and grounded, and I think they're great for that. But one of the problems I have with a lot of modern cinema, and it's not just action films, it's almost every genre, there's a sort of cynicism in a lot of these films. There's a very snarky, like I'm probably going to be unpopular here, but I'm bored to death of many superhero films, with the odd exception, because there is a snarkiness to them where everything is a one-liner or a snarky remark to something, which is a million miles away from the cheesy one-liners of the 80s and 90s.
I mean,
do you know what I mean?
I'm not as into the superhero films as I was. I still think that
there's a time and place.
Yeah, I think like every other one is pretty good. Whereas what I've gone off is like the Bond films, and I mentioned Bourne, because they're just so monotone to me. There's no
colour.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I disagree. I respectfully disagree, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So
because I with the superhero films, and they're starting now to take note of why people are going off them, and I'm really looking forward to the new Superman.
Yeah.
Being a DC fan as well, I've always preferred. I like Marvel, but I've always preferred DC because that's what I grew up with. I'm of the age of I can remember every Batman film coming out post the 1966 one.
Yeah,
they were big events, and I loved them. I can vividly remember the last of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies getting released.
Yep.
I was very young. I don't think
terrible film, but I love it.
Canon, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But I grew up with those movies, and I like. There's another one. There's more heart in them.
Yes.
And the humour's done well.
That's the thing that I find missing. You hear a lot of stories about almost like algorithmic made films, 4-quadrant films, films designed to appeal to everyone and no one.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's boring. It's boring.
I didn't hate it, but that F1 film was out at the moment.
I haven't seen it.
I'm pretty sure that was written by AI. It just feels that. But
I'll let you know next week.
But with the more recent, I mean, Guardians 3 I thought was great.
Yeah, no, that's an exception to the rule because that has heart.
Yeah, so they can still be good, but it's like they are picking directors whose heart aren't in it. They think they are. They're good directors, but they've got no investment in those characters, and they churn them out too quickly.
But I think actually that was the problem a lot. So we were saying about how we love the feel of 80s and 90s action films, but I think these sorts of things, they're all cyclical, because it was getting to a point where action films were getting boring.
Yeah.
But weirdly, paradoxically, going back to them now, there's a sense of it's almost like comfort food in that you can kind of see the thematic beats and when this is going to happen, when that's going to happen. But there's a weird charm to it.
Yeah, but
that's missing in a lot of modern cinema.
Definitely. But maybe in 20 years' time, we'll go back to a random superhero movie that bombed, and we'll see good elements in it we missed out on because there's so much. And with Dolph Lundgren, if you look at his films, he's done so many and he's still doing them.
Yes.
There are more duds than there are good ones. But when they're good, they're very good.
But I was saying about, we talked about that in the modern day there aren't really many star actors.
No.
But with JCVD, with Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Lundgren, whatever, if you go to a shop, charity shop or whatever, and you see a random film that they star in and you've never heard of it, chances are people like you and I, we're going to pick them up.
Yeah, definitely.
Without a second thought, because we know we like this person enough to warrant giving it a go.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've got a whole big DVD holder bag full of random Nicolas Cage films to get through, because they'll be hit and miss, but I know he's always going to be good in them.
Yeah, he'll always be the best thing about it.
Yeah.
I remember you lent me was it Prisoners of the Wasteland?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was disappointing because I thought to myself, it's Nicolas. Sorry, I'm diverging here, but it's Nicolas Cage and it's Sion Sono, the director, and I'm a big fan of his stuff. He is unhinged.
Yeah.
If you ever seen the film Love Exposure?
Don't think so.
Okay, I highly recommend it. It's 4 hours long and it's bonkers. Balls to the wall bonkers. Yeah.
I think if Nick Cage is in it, I could watch a 4-hour film.
So you think Nicolas Cage in a Sion Sono film, what could go wrong? But apart from one or two scenes, it was deadly boring.
There was moments, wasn't there?
There was
And it had
moments.
I always forget her name. The actress who played the Mummy in the remake of the Mummy with Tom Cruise, and she was in Star Trek Beyond as the new alien type character. She's always really good, but the films she's in either bomb or aren't good.
Mm-hmm.
She's the main actress in that Zack Snyder sci-fi thing that came out on Netflix recently.
No, I'm not a fan. So
but you must know what I mean. It was like it's a rip off of Star Wars, basically.
Yeah.
And she was great. I only watched the first part, but she was great in it. But she just can't get a break, as in something to.
Do you reckon it's bad personal choices or just too much faith in bad?
I think because she's not got that big yet, she's taken a role she can take. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Might be management, but all of these films, like the one with Nicolas Cage you just mentioned, should have been good, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose Star Trek Beyond done well.
I thought it was okay. It's disposable fun. Yeah. And sometimes that's all I want. You know, not every film has to be,
especially from a blockbuster.
Yeah. Not every film has to be a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Universal Soldier is not a masterpiece, but it's a good way to spend an hour and 40 minutes.
It's definitely top tier 90s action though.
Yeah.
You know, it's for me it's a solid 4.
I'd give it a 4.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, and there's actually still more JCVD I've yet to watch. Ooh. So, which I do have. So Sudden Death I've yet to watch. Oh goodness, there was one I got quite recently. Nowhere to Run. Still need to watch.
Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah, still need to watch that one. Legionnaire, but I hear that's not very good.
Is that the one that's got another name as well?
No, that one is Lionheart. That's called I've always called AWOL.
Oh yeah, I've got AWOL.
Legionnaire is where he joins the French Legion.
Yeah.
Which that sounds interesting, but
yeah,
I think that's towards to his straight to video.
So as someone who's still doing the straight to video, there's one come out literally a few weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, I saw it in the DVD shop in the new DVD shop in Ipswich.
You have to wonder how much he's in the film. It's a bit like
Bruce Willis.
He's probably only in it for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. But you know, I think, and also I will say, it's a film I've got to go back to. But I never really thought Time Cop was that good.
I've only seen the first 20 minutes of it.
Okay.
It's one I really, really need to see.
And that was a big one when that came out.
Yeah.
That was up there with these big releases. But with this as well, the fact back then you wouldn't get a successful sci-fi action film like this. What's an 18 certificate? It would if it was made now, it would be a 12 or PG-13 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's where, as this is about franchises and remakes, for me that's one of the reasons there's not been a critically successful Terminator film since Part 2, because they've made them 12 certificates.
The last one was 15,
which they've done on purpose, but I think they've left it too late. I don't mind any of them. It's all right. But
I think they all have merit except the third one.
He's got a machine gun in one hand, a coffin in the other. Brilliant.
That's the only good bit.
And what's her name? Who is in Blood Rain as the female Terminator? Is good.
Yeah, she's okay.
Yeah, she does action. She's good at kicking people in the face. She's done many a film where she kicks people in the face, and that's what we want.
Cynthia Rothrock could have done that as well.
She's in a film with her.
No way.
Yeah, I mentioned it to you off mic earlier. Mercenaries with Cynthia Rothrock, and what's the actress's name who was in Death Proof? Who was a stunt? Zoe Bell.
Oh, Zoe Ball.
Yeah.
Not Zoe Ball. That's a DJ.
Yeah, I watched an action film with her in. So
Zoe Bell.
Sorry. Which is a very low budget. Expendables a rip off, but I suppose Expendables is the link to Universal Soldier. But I'm very excited now. I found out there's 2 more with both of them in. That's so they've done 4. I thought there was only
2.
Yeah, so there's 4 with Van Damme, so 6 in total. It's going to be one of those weird franchises.
It's almost like Halloween. You need a flow chart, don't you?
Yeah. Which Terminator done that as well, didn't it? So let's wrap things up. Okay. I'm glad you've enjoyed it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hopefully that will get you in the mood to watch the second one, which you've had on Blu-ray for a couple of years.
But yep, I'll move it towards the top.
Yeah. I definitely get that. I've done that with films before. I've bought part 2, and I can't watch the part 2.
No, I have to watch it in order.
Yeah, apart from we both watched Curse 2, didn't we?
Yes.
Which is no relation to the first one, so we're right.
No, but actually, as an aside, when I looked into it, Curse 1 wasn't directed by Lucio Fulci, but he had a big hand in it, and anything he does, I'm automatically interested.
Yeah.
Even his rubbish films, I
Yeah.
find fascinating.
I think I've heard the second Curse is maybe the best one.
Yes.
But I've heard the first one's alright.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone hate on it.
No, it was a strange film, but
Yeah.
but again, it would never be made these days. Not because of sensibilities or anything like that. It was just bloody weird.
Yeah.
And we need more of that.
More weirdness.
More weirdness.
So, Benji, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah,
always good to hear from you.
Ha 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 ha.
Aha. Don't forget, you mentioned it earlier, to like, subscribe, and share.
If you wish.
Yes. And
It's not mandatory.
rate and write reviews if you can. Not just, this isn't a begging thing, but if you give it a 5-star review, it helps the audience grow, apparently.
Yes.
Is what I've been told. So please do that. And if you're interested in coming on the show, talk about some horror and sci-fi with me, let me know. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can listen on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Till next time, in the words of Van Damme, give me your favourite Van Damme quote. Oh dear. Go on.
No, you put me on the spot now. Oh, God. We can edit it.
Yeah, just punch me in the face, and that'll be the. Ow! He actually did. I was gonna do this, but no, he did hit me.
I believe in realism.
Yes, that's why I'm the same. That's why I love Universal Soldier.
Ta-ra.